So the cam tensioner is back. I was going to do this myself in my workshop. I was going to try to press that center portion out of the bearing. I decided not to. Why damage it? And I was having my truck, the snow tires changed over anyway. So I brought it to them and they did it at no charge. So appreciate that. Now let's see if we can put it in. All right, there's the new belt. It's on the bottom pulley, it's on the exhaust and the intake cams. I'm just trying to get it over that last one. Not very easy. In fact, if I didn't take the black belt off and match it to this one, I'd almost swear that this belt is too small. But I got a couple screwdrivers. I'm going to see if I can gently get under it and slide it over that remaining sprocket there. See how it goes. Okay, YouTube, back on the Esprit. Today's a big day. I've got the timing belt in. This video is going to be about seeing whether we can get the car to turn over with the key. I've got a battery charging over there. That one's going to come out. Put the battery in. I'll hook it up. Turn the key over. Hopefully the engine turns over and we build oil pressure. Before we do that, I need to engage the inertia switch, which I've already done. That would allow the fuel pump to run. That, in theory, should make it so the fuel pump does not kick in. The other thing to attend to is those coil packs down there need to be disconnected from the wires. Not the spark plug leads, but the wires running into them, so that we don't generate any spark when we turn the engine over. And finally, the last thing I'm going to do is open up that air cleaner, check out the condition of the air filter, but for the most part, really just confirm that there's no mice living in there that are going to get sucked into the intake when we start turning this thing over with a battery. So first things first, let's get started on that air cleaner. I'm curious to see what shape it's in anyway. Well, that was easy. There we go. Just break the clips off. Why not? Yeah, these clips are so old. They're so brittle. They have the same ones on the boat, so I know where to get them. They'll get replaced. Bit dirty, but better shape than I thought it was going to be in. Jeez. There's no mouse nests or anything like that. All right. Set that in there just so we don't suck anything in. While I'm here, I'll undo the coil packs. I'll undo the coil packs. This will prevent us from shooting sparks when we turn the key over. Making note here, we have green, blue, green, blue, green. So we've got 2 green wires on the left, and this one has a green and purple on the right. So we'll make sure we put them back in the same way we took them off. I want to get a plastic bag and wrap it around this. Again, there was fuel in the lines when I took them out, and what I want to do though is make sure that even though the inertia switch is engaged, that there's not some other functionality that will spray out gas when I turn the key. In other words, I think there's a accumulator of some sort that's vacuum operated. I don't want to start spraying fuel everywhere, so I'm going to get a plastic bag and put it over that. Alright, that's that. Let's see. I don't see anything that would interfere with the belt when it turns. That's free and clear. That's that damn hose. Alright. The engine has oil. Inertia switch is engaged, which means we shouldn't have any fuel. The wires are removed from the electrical coil packs, so we won't have spark. Again, there's oil in the engine. The last thing we need to do, I think, after we checked nothing obscuring the intake, nothing going to get sucked in there and make a mess. I got to turn the ignition off because the key's in there, and to turn the wheel I had it on. In fact, I'll remove the key from the ignition and I'll hook up the battery, and that'll be the first time this car's had a battery with juice in it in quite some time. We'll see what happens. I'm not really super hopeful that, I mean, I'd be very happy if this car turns over with a key, but I'd be very surprised at the same time. Last year, my the Lotus Evora I have turned over really slow. I charged the battery and it was fine for a while, and then another time it did the same thing. So I just said, "That's it. I'm swapping the battery out." This one's only from 320 though, so it's not that old. So I just charged this one up. It should do fine for this purpose. Probably not a long-term keeper. Let's see if I can get it in there. I was kind of hoping the wires would... Yeah, maybe. Okay. All right. Here we go. Nothing burned down. All right, let's see what happens. Oh, we have instrumentation. How cool is that? How do I turn it off? There. Nope. Hazards. There we go. Lights are off. All right. Oh, how awesome is that? All right. I don't know if the clutch No horn. I don't know if the clutch has to be depressed or not. Whew. That is a hard pedal. Anyway, that's got to be neutral. All right, this is not a start video. This is just a do we build oil pressure video. And even before that, does this key do anything at all? Okay. I can't get it to turn. Oh, there we go. Holy. I was, all right, relax. Okay, as you heard, the engine turned over just fine. But I also heard something running that sounded a lot like the din of a fuel pump. Let's make sure we're not pumping fuel back here. I gotta tell you, I'm a little concerned as I try to get in this and out of this vehicle with no seat in it, how difficult it is to get in and out of this vehicle, even with no seat in it. It doesn't bode well when I put the seat back in. Oh. There's our fuel. Let's see. It's dry. It's dry. That's good. Let's see if we can get it started from here without pressing the clutch down. I'm not getting anything on oil pressure yet. I might have to go to a mechanical oil pressure gauge. All right, that's disappointing. I mean, not disappointing in the sense, I'm super happy that the thing turns over. I'm just a little disappointed. I do smell gas. I'm just disappointed that I didn't get a buildup of oil pressure. What have I unplugged that might cause no oil pressure? God only knows. Pour some oil in the cylinders. Yeah, I'll pour some oil in the cylinders and turn it over some more. Give it another opportunity for the gauges to come up. My guess is that the gauge is just not reading and that it's got oil pressure, right? There's nothing I would have done that would have... the engine would not turn over that freely if the previous owner had seized it up or anything like that. Like, it's got to have oil pressure, but we're going to play it safe. Pour some oil down the cylinders. I should say, pour some more oil down the cylinders. When it comes to engines that have been sitting for a while, lubrication is your friend. All right. Keep the oil from spraying. I just put it in there. When I turn it over, we'll cover it that way. Hop back in and see what happens. Nope. All right, I can smell oil. Not too bad. Oh boy. All right, well, it's all getting cleaned up anyway. All right, after that attempt, the oil pressure gauge still didn't move. Furthermore, when you put the key in and you turn it, you can see all the gauge move a little bit. So they are getting, it is getting juice, but it tells me there's either truly no oil pressure in this engine, or more likely, hopefully, is that the module that sends the pressure is either broken or disconnected. And it's possible. I mean, I disconnected some wires, but I don't remember any of them going to the sensor. So I'm going to go inside. I'm going to figure out where the oil pressure sender is on this engine and start troubleshooting from there. All right, this is the manual for troubleshooting. I was kind of hoping it would tell me the actual troubleshooting procedure. There we go. Drain. I think that's the indication that most likely that's where the oil pressure switch is. I don't know if I can just orientate myself on this. This is the front of the engine. This is the back of the engine. Yeah, turbo right there. Turbo going back. So they're either saying hook up the mechanical oil pressure gauge here, or that is the switch for the oil pressure gauge. Let's see if there's a way to troubleshoot that. I'll look in the electrical section now. This is the mechanical section. Okay, YouTube, I'm out. Going back out to the car. The service manual, at least the one I have, is not a help for no oil pressure. Other than it told me, I think, where the switch is, so we can look at that. But something that I might be overlooking is that at the angle that the car is at, jacked up, there may not actually be oil where the pump can get to it. So I gotta look at the dipstick, which should give an indication of how much oil is in the car now that it's up on blocks, because prior to this it had plenty of oil. I checked it several times and was surprised at the condition of the oil, but it could actually be a problem, truly be, that there is no oil pressure because I've got it way up in the air. Let's take a look. Here's the dipstick. According to that, the oil's fine. And now that I look at it, I don't think the angle is not too steep. I did leave a sensor unplugged, the ignition timing sensor module. I don't think oil pressure would be part of that circuit. And the reason I left it unplugged when I was finding top dead center is it's a pain in the ass to get to down there. So let's hook that up at least. I need bigger, smaller hands. Come on, get in there. Ah, damn it. Oh. All right. That switch that you see down there, the red, the blue, that was the one that was out, so that I could find top dead center. I just popped it back in. I honestly don't think that has anything to do with the oil. That's the electronic ignition telling your car when to spark. But who knows? Maybe they're, yeah, I don't know. What I did see in the manual, though, was that the oil pressure switch, at least the implication that the switch was located back here somewhere. Yeah. All right, back to Google. Okay, guys, back to the Lotus. Not this one. This one came out of winter storage. Drove it around today. It was a blast. Good day to be driving on the road in a little sports car. So this guy, I've been thinking about it. Had to walk away from it yesterday. And ultimately, what I'm going to do, well, first of all, thank you so much for everybody on Lotus Talk that left comments and their opinions. And I'm willing to agree or bet that if I actually started the car, if I got it running, the oil pressure would come up. I've seen on GM350s before the oil not prime based off the starter itself, and those engines are typically in the sump itself, where this one is not. It's actually elevated, so it takes a bit of effort to create that suction. So what to do? My thoughts on it are that I'm going to, first of all, get everything going in my favor. The car right now is, okay, so you can see the car right now is elevated in the air. I don't think the elevation is too much. I don't think that's having an impact on the oil pickup. But to play it safe, I'm going to elevate the front because I still need to work under the car. So I'm going to elevate the front, bring it to the same height as the back so that the car is essentially flat. Once I do that, I'm going to drain the oil that's in there. Now, some of you might say, well, what do you mean drain the oil? Why on earth would you still have the old oil in there? It was simply because the oil looked halfway decent, albeit a little high. And just using it to build pressure, I thought would have been adequate. But I want to get everything on my working for me or planned out carefully. So I'm going to elevate the car, make it level, change out the oil. I'm going to leave the filter off, and I'm still seriously thinking about removing the timing belt from the cam auxiliary pulley, and I would zip tie it or tie wrap it to the other 3 pulleys so it doesn't come off. And then I think I can get a 90-degree angle drill bit on the front of that auxiliary pulley and turn it over with a drill. We'll see. Right now, what I'm thinking is, let's get it level, let's get the oil changed out, and then maybe I'll try turning it over with the key again to see if we can get some oil coming out of where the oil filter was. So the oil filter has been removed. There's the old oil filter. I don't know if you can see, you can't see it in there, but take my word for it. It's not bone dry. That's got to be old oil. I don't think it's the new oil. All right, let me clean up the oil I just poured onto my car. I'll get back to you. I don't recommend this for beginners. Taking a chance putting it up here and crawling under it later. Get my jack stands out. See if I can find a place to put them on the body. It's pretty firm, it's not going anywhere. Alright. I gotta go see if I can dig this sliver out. There we go. 18. Again, so this is an old torque wrench that's broken in a sense. It doesn't give accurate readings anymore, so I use it as a 1/2 inch or 3/8 inch drive breaker bar. Little bit of gasoline in it. The first fluid to come out was gasoline. I could smell it. I smell it when I took the oil filter off yesterday. A little before I even had the bolt all the way off. What was coming out from around the bolt was semi-clear. Uh-oh. That's antifreeze right there. Look, well, it could be old antifreeze from when I took the hoses and stuff off. Well, it could have worked its way back. It wouldn't have, because that's not a good sign. There might have been a tiny bit of antifreeze in the oil. Well, that's why we're doing a compression test. The fact that this oil is the color it is, that amber color, it's not bad oil. It's not spent oil. So my guess, one theory, is that this car has a blown head gasket. And they changed out the oil to see if... And they changed out the oil to determine how bad the problem was, and when they saw that there was antifreeze in the oil again, they just parked the car. That's a possibility. I don't know that that's the case. I did see what I thought was gas, and I could smell gas in the oil filter, but what I just saw right there, I'm fairly certain was antifreeze. Not much, but something to look for. I don't know if you can see that, but that's black oil, which was embedded in this cap. This is not, I don't know, that's an amber color. Not like transmission fluid, but almost like brand new oil. And yet what's in this cap is definitely not brand new. So, I don't know, very strange. Could be that just before he parked the car, he had the oil changed. Maybe, I don't know. But the oil that's coming out is not bad at all. If you saw it on the dipstick, you would not think it needed to be changed. The OCD part of me wants to yank this engine anyway, just so I can clean everything and repaint it. If I do that, I gotta have my garage built if I'm doing that. There's no way I'm doing this again. Not out here like this. Too dangerous, too cold in the winter. Too much effort. All right, that's good enough. All right. I'd really like to see what's in this oil. One way I know I can see what's in the oil is if I pour this catch basin into some clear plastic bottles, which will allow the whatever liquid it was to sink to the bottom, and the oil will float to the top. All right, 2 jugs of the oil that came out of the Esprit. They're in clear bottles. I'll let them sit here for a couple hours. I'm not seeing the fluid that I thought I saw when I first started taking that bolt out. While there were still threads on the bolt in the sump itself, some of the oil had started leaking around it, and to me it looked really, really light. Like I was kind of assuming I would see gas, so maybe that's what I thought I saw. But then when I pulled the bolt out, and it was that thick stream, it was that golden color, or dark, like a dark amber color, of what you see in front of you now. Maybe it was just the volume I was seeing leaking around the threads made it look like it was something else. I can tell you that 6 inches upstream or away on one of the hoses, there were 2 drops of green antifreeze. I did see that. Now, I think it's just coincidence because I saw antifreeze on some pipes that were much farther away. I'm hoping it's just a coincidence. I can tell you this. At this point, I don't see any clear separation of clear indication of any kind of antifreeze in the oil. But let's wait until it settles out a little bit more. Usually, you'll see water right away. The oil will float to the top, and water stays on the bottom. I'm not seeing anything like that at this point, but fingers crossed. Fingers crossed we don't have a blown head gasket. All right. Here are the 2 jugs of oil that I let sit overnight. The concern was that there was antifreeze in the oil, or gas, or anything else, I don't know. The first jug shows no indication of that. The second one does. What it is, I don't know. But this line right here is something other than oil. That sucks. All right, so what I'm going to do is stick a tube down there and siphon from the bottom, and we should get a good idea of what that is. It's either going to be antifreeze or it's going to be gas. Hoping for gas, but that's a lot of gas. It's most likely antifreeze, and that's not a good sign. Let's see what we find. All right, I just siphoned from the bottom. There's a little bit of oil in there, but for the most part, the hose that was coming out was green. So I'm assuming it's antifreeze. That's just not a good sign at all. Likely means we have, well, it means a few things. It means that antifreeze is getting into the oil, and that can happen a number of ways. The most common, obviously, that most people think of is a blown head gasket. But it could also be a cracked head. Yeah, look at that green. It could also be a cracked head. It could be a cracked block. It could be the charge cooler has a leak, so it's allowing fluid antifreeze to get into the intake system. And God only, you know, the car's been sitting for so long. It's hard to say. The good thing is antifreeze sinks to the bottom, which means it shouldn't have, the bearings and stuff like that on the car would have been high and dry. Or even if they were soaked in if it elevated enough, it would be they were soaked in oil. So I'm not expecting any damage necessarily to the bearings, assuming that's antifreeze. And we'll do a compression test to see what we get for compression still. That's the goal, is put the timing belt back on and see what we get for compression. If the compression test reveals two adjoining cylinders, or one of the cylinders is low or adjoining cylinders are low, likely not definitively, but likely the head gasket. If you watch YouTube, the Wizard does a video on this where he sticks a borescope down and is able to see antifreeze in the cylinders, and then able to see an actual break in the head gasket itself. I don't think that's going to be our case here. I don't think we're going to get away that easy because the car's not running. He was able to run it and let it sit and then stick a borescope in there and see fresh antifreeze. This car's been sitting for a long time. It's not running. Don't think we're going to get it running. If there is in fact a blown head gasket, it's probably better to pull the engine, but a little premature yet. Do a little more investigation, get that timing belt on today, and do a compression test and see what that tells us. Right now I'm going to pour some of this out, try to get a whiff of it to see what it is exactly. Here you go, guys. This is a good way to see was in the bottom. See that nice green hue of antifreeze? So, yeah. I didn't think I was gonna get off scot-free here with no mechanical issues, and the engine was just gonna start and be great. But let's go a little further, find out if we can figure out what's going on in the engine. Okay, YouTube, back with the oil pressure issue. What I decided to do was, I know the starter motor doesn't turn the oil pump over fast enough to really circulate oil, but the fact that I had no oil or very little oil in that oil filter, and the oil that I had was not fresh, it was old oil. So I wasn't getting oil to the oil filter. Really concerned me. So you saw what I did earlier. I jacked the car up and got it nice and level. I just changed out the oil. You saw the results of that. And what I've decided to do was take the cam belt, or the cam belt, timing belt, off mostly, or actually not mostly, leave it on mostly. And you can see here what I did is I brought the car back up to top dead center. I confirmed it. And then I zip tied the timing belt to the intake and exhaust pulleys. And then on the bottom, because you can't zip tie it down there, the bottom crank pulley, what I did is I drew a line directly across the belt in black ink, not white ink this time, so I can find it, to the tooth it's supposed to be on. And then I took the tensioner off. Then I was able to slide the belt off the auxiliary pulley. So now it's a matter of how do I get that auxiliary pulley to turn, to spin up the pump. Well, this is what I came up with. This is a right angle adapter. It's a swivel adapter. And this is obviously a, what is this, 17 17-inch socket that has an adapter which is designed to fit in a drill. It's longer than this. What I did is I cut it off and ground it down so it was shorter, like that. And I actually had it on 1800 RPMs. And I was able to fit this onto the front of that auxiliary pulley and turn it. And I thought that, you know, I left the oil filter off because I wanted to confirm that oil was coming through, since I don't have a working oil pressure gauge, or I haven't had one yet. So I left the oil filter off thinking I would just let off the trigger the moment I saw oil. So I was on this trigger for less than 5 seconds, and I then spent the next 25 minutes cleaning up oil. So the good news is, I definitely have oil pressure. I have a lot of volume of oil, that's for certain. I've cleaned it up. I just checked it on the dipstick, and by forcing it through the engine, I'm already down. Still, I'm below the high mark and closer to the low mark. So we're gonna put some more oil in it. So as you can see, I have the funnel in here, and what I did is I poured a full gallon of 2050 weight oil in there, and it was over the high mark. And then I ran my drill, and, you know, made a mess. But once I cleaned that up, I ran the drill for a minute to let it circulate throughout. And when I check the dipstick now, it's closer to the low mark than it is the high mark. So probably down about not quite a quart. So I'm going to add some to it. And nothing fancy here. This is just Castrol GTX 20W50. When this car is actually running, I'll let it heat up. I'll drive it for a bit, and then I'll probably do another oil change to get any gunk that's out of it. So we're going to pour in about a quart. Now we're going to go spin our drill with the oil filter on and see if we can circulate it a bit more. So I was running at the high speed, and then it just started binding. The drill would shut off because I was meeting resistance, which was obviously the oil pressure building up. So I've switched it to a lower speed that'll still be plenty strong enough to push oil throughout the system and not burn my drill out at the same time. Here we go. Let's check our oil. Trying to catch one drop after I sprayed oil everywhere. Can't tell. No oil's hard to tell. But I think it's a little high. I would say it's right on, it's a little above the H, so it's slightly high, not terribly high. I'm gonna leave it for now. That should be fine. I don't think I need to build any more oil pressure or circulate any more oil. We're building pressure, and I have got good oil circulation. So the next step is to put the timing belt back on, put the water pump back on, hook all that stuff up. I've got to order a intake plenum gasket. Is this what you would call it? I'm not quite sure. From JAE. So until that comes in, I won't be able to hook the plenum up, which means I won't be trying to run the car. I don't want to do that yet. But there's lots of things to be reassembled. So there's plenty to do. But yeah, we've got oil pressure, and I've forced it through the engine. I'm confident if I put that timing belt on the engine, or back on right now and turn that key over, that I would see oil pressure on that gauge, no doubt about it. And I'm really happy I did this because I know if I set the car down and change oil and I set the car down and then actually tried to start it, and if I got it started right away, I'm willing to bet the oil pressure would have shot right up. But I spun it quite a bit, 20 seconds at a time, trying to get oil pressure by spinning up the starter motor, was not getting it done. And how much longer would it be before those bottom cranks started getting a little dry? Even turning at that low speed, it's just, to me, it wasn't worth it. I'm not getting this car on the road tomorrow. It's just not going to happen. So why rush it? Better do it the right way. Make a mess, but so I'm happy. I've got oil pressure. Got to start putting things back together, but that's likely it for today. I'm exhausted. Thanks. Bye. Just in from my shed after looking at the oil that came out and rested overnight. And there's clearly coolant in the oil. Still want to do a compression test. Don't want to just yank this engine out and assume it's the head gasket. I think there's more investigation to be done still. You know, it could be a leak in the charge cooler. It could be potentially a leak in the oil cooler. Hard to say yet, but a compression test will at least give us a little more insight into potentially what's going on. I mean, the last thing I want to do is spend the effort and time yanking this engine out, taking it apart to find that the head gasket is fine. That would just be, a waste of time. That would just not be good. So let's see if we can get this guy back on somehow. There we go. Well, that went on easy enough, but I got the timing tensioner off, that's why. And that is clearly, let's see, yeah, that can't be off a tooth because it's free spinning. Let's go take a look underneath. All right, trying to put tension back on the tensioner. Let's see, that's 19. But, now I know why. Now I know what the real reason that the Lotus Esprit sat for so long unattended. I think the seller was given the news that there was antifreeze in the oil. Probably given a price of what it cost, what it would take to fix it. And probably wasn't happy with that number. And so it's that. We're gonna see if we can figure out exactly what's causing it before we resign ourselves to rebuilding an engine. Okay, belt is tensioned. Just hand tensioned. I don't think we're going to be running the engine. But what I'll do now is I'll cut the, just making sure we're still at top dead center everywhere. Yeah. I'm going to cut the tie wraps off that I have on here, and those pulleys down there. And then spin the engine over by hand a few times, check the tension again, just to make sure it's in the ballpark of being okay. And then I can actually turn the engine over with the key, doing a compression check on each cylinder. And that should give us a lot more insight into what's going on in this thing. Stay tuned. Should make life easier. Oh, come on, you son of a bitch. I wonder if I can... Hey. 2 to go. One of those is going to be an absolute nightmare to get to. 3 down, 1 to go. This one is raised off the belt, so there we go. All right, now let's go underneath and turn it over by hand. Let's see. All right, 50, 60, 65. That's a bit too tight. Gonna need the camera so I can do an acoustic on it and see what I get. I'll let you know. All right, YouTube. I've just tensioned the timing belt, at least close enough. I tested it with the Cricket. It's around 50 pounds. It should be fine for this test. Closed up the intake plenum. Just 3 bolts holding it closed at this point because it's probably coming apart again. And I've taken everything that might interfere with the timing belt off or out of the way. Time to hook up the battery and turn the engine over. Less concerned about oil pressure this time and more concerned about what we're going to get for compression in each gauge. So right now I've got 4 rags in front of each of the spark plug outlets to limit the amount of oil that comes out, since I did put oil down in each cylinder. But I'm going to turn the engine over now, maybe for just 5 seconds, let the cylinders clear, and then come back and do a compression test on each cylinder and see what it turns out and see what the results are. This could be very telling. It should be very telling. Obviously, if all the pressures came back fine and they were even across all cylinders, where's the antifreeze coming from? It might point to other locations. It could still be a cracked block. It could likely potentially still be a cracked head. I wouldn't necessarily suspect the blown head gasket at that point though. But it does make you start looking at the oil cooler and the charge cooler as potential places where the antifreeze might be coming from. Anyway, let's get to it. I've got 3 compression gauges, and if I recall correctly, none of them read exactly the same. Get to one that's easier. Cylinder 4. Ooh, it's at 140. It's at 140, which is at the bottom end of the spectrum, but for a car that's been sitting for 5 years, totally to be expected. So that's good news so far. It's actually 130, 140, 142. Cylinder 4 is 142. cylinder number 3 coming up. That one's low. That's 125. All right, cylinder number 2. That one's at 132. So what do we got? We got 142, 132, and 120 so far. Not real good numbers. But again, if I get the car running with these numbers, they will each come up. How much? I don't know. All right, cylinder number 1. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see this one. Number 1. Actually about 129. All right, we're gonna run the same test with a different compression gauge. I know one of these is not accurate. This is the old one. Let's see if it makes it more reliable or not. I don't know. Try the easy to get to cylinder. Problems threading there. All right, cylinder number 4. And you guys definitely won't be able to see this one, I don't think, because the gauge is not flexible. So, all right, cylinder number 4, come on. So this one reads 155, which would be, you know, that's fantastic pressure. But it just read 142 a minute ago, so what gauge is correct here? All right, cylinder 3, come on. This is the lowest one. And it's still low. It's reading, although not as bad. Let's see. It's 130, 135, 140, 145. So 130, 135, 137. So if it's true, if it's a true 137, first of all, it's going to be, what did we say was 157? So 20-pound difference. Exceeds, I think you're allowed, they recommend nothing more than a 12% gap in pressure between cylinders. It's almost better if they're all uniformly low as opposed to, you know, having one low. Why are you not threading? And 20 pounds, you know, so 10% off would be what, 15 pounds. And so 20 or 12, yeah, 20 pounds would be at least right around 12 actually. Anyway, I'm not really sure what these tests are showing. They aren't indicating, there's no clear indication that it's a blown head gasket, certainly from these tests. And it is indicating that we do have compression in each cylinder, so there's no valve stuck open, there's no broken crank rods. The cylinders, the pistons are moving, they're generating compression. That's all good. Number 2, come up. Holy shit, this one reads 155. Alright, so we got like 155. What, 125 or 130? I forget what I told you. I'll have to look at this video to get that number again. Cylinder number 1. $148. All right, so I just came back out from watching a YouTube video from the car wizard on YouTube, Omega Auto Clinic in Kansas. The wizard, he calls himself the car wizard, and the guy's fantastic. He knows a lot about cars. And he had an S4 in there that had suspected bad head gasket, and he went through the different, and while it turned out to be the case in that car, he went through the different possibilities of where else fluid could get in to the cylinders. He didn't mention the oil cooler, which I would think that might be one way in, but he did mention the charge cooler. So what I just did is I took the charge cooler off. Show it to you. All right, there's the Lotus charge cooler. And obviously this is the antifreeze in and out. And what he said is that it's possible that the fins, it's basically a radiator in there, and it's possible that those fins, if they rupture, you'd see antifreeze could leak its way through into the turbo intake, which would then potentially make its way into the oil. While there's plenty of fluid in here, because I drained it when I tipped it, I see nothing in here or in here. It's bone dry. And even if it had dried up over time, I see no residue of any fluid whatsoever. So is that good or is that bad? I don't know. What it tells us is it's likely not the charge cooler. Don't know how expensive a charge cooler is. If it were $500 or less, I'd be like, great, if the charge cooler's bad, just replace the charge cooler and we've got a good engine. But this does not appear to be the case. This charge cooler appears okay. So while I have it out, though, I'm going to at least clean up the engine a little bit. I bought a brand new shop vac because my other one died on me. I'll get it in here and clean it up, and maybe even take the fuel rail off, get a look at those injectors. Because right now I am still leaning towards getting the car running regardless of the fact that there was antifreeze in the oil. And then see what kind of smoke comes out of the exhaust, see if we're still getting a leak, and also examine the other parts of the car where antifreeze might be leaking down into the cylinder, because I don't know that it is directly through the cylinders. I haven't seen anything yet, but it's difficult to tell by just turning the car over, and I drained some of the antifreeze out of the system, not all of it, but basically whatever came out when I took the thermostat housing off. That's what got drained out of the system. So until the car's running, we're not really going to get water circulating through the block into the cylinders. I could check my oil again. I'm willing to bet it's going to be fine, though. It's not going to show anything. So might as well do some cleaning and ponder what the next move is on this car. It's pretty dirty. Oh, that's the paint. I read online what a pain in the ass these things are to repaint. Really not our primary concern at the moment, though, so just do some cleanup, I guess. Okay, guys, welcome back. As far as, well, we'll get into costs a moment here, but right now I just want to display the results of the 2 compression tests that I did across the 4 cylinders, the 2 different gauges. Obviously, it's reading about 15, anywhere from 13 to 19 pounds high, or it's reading 13 to 19 pounds low. I'm not sure which one. Regardless, none of these numbers are terribly concerning. And maybe this one, maybe cylinder 3 is the source of a small head gasket leak. It's hard to imagine having any kind of leak and you're still getting semi-decent pressure. I don't know. I have to look into it some more. These tests were not definitive in any way, shape, or form, other than to tell me that I do have more than enough pressure to actually run the car, and that's what we're going to be focusing on the next time. The next video you see from me should be, hopefully, getting the car running. But for costs coming into this episode, we were at $42.23.24. And the only thing I've added is the Cricut tool from Amazon, which is used for tensioning the timing belt. It was $15.71 for $42.38.95 thus far. Thanks for watching.